During a public unveiling of a new municipal building in Raleigh, North Carolina, Chief Architect Daniel Hargrove made a grave misstep. He laughed dismissively when 19-year-old Sarah Mitchell, a wheelchair user, raised a concern about the building's accessibility. What Sarah said next about the structure's design flaws left the entire room stunned, exposing issues that threatened the project's future and humbled everyone present. Sarah Mitchell was a sophomore at North Carolina State University, studying civil engineering. Born with cerebral palsy, she used a motorized wheelchair to navigate campus and her daily life. Despite her disability, Sarah was fiercely independent, known among her professors for her sharp mind and passion for inclusive design. She'd grown up advocating for herself, learning early that the world wasn't always built with people like her in mind. That day, she attended the unveiling of Raleigh's new community center, a $40 million project touted as a model of modern architecture. Daniel Hargrove, 52, was the chief architect at Hargrove and Associates, the firm behind the project. With decades of experience and a portfolio of award-winning buildings, he carried an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. He'd overseen every detail of the community center, from its sleek glass facade to its state-of-the-art facilities. The unveiling was his moment to shine, with city officials, media, and residents gathered to celebrate. The event began smoothly. Hargrove gave a polished presentation, highlighting the building's eco-friendly features and multipurpose spaces. The audience applauded, impressed by the renderings projected on a large screen. After his speech, the floor opened for questions. Most were predictable, queries about parking, operating hours, and funding. Then Sarah raised her hand from the front row. "I'm Sarah Mitchell, a student at NC State," she said, her voice clear through the microphone. "I noticed the main entrance has a small step about 3 inches high. How does that comply with ADA accessibility standards for wheelchair users like me?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Hargrove, standing at the podium, smiled, a reaction that seemed more reflexive than genuine. He leaned into the microphone and chuckled lightly. "Young lady, I assure you, we've followed all regulations. A 3-inch step is hardly an obstacle. We've got ramps at the side entrances for folks like you." The phrase "folks like you" landed poorly. Several audience members shifted uncomfortably. Sarah didn't flinch. She adjusted her wheelchair slightly and spoke again. "With respect, Mr. Hargrove, a side entrance isn't equal access. The ADA requires the main entrance to be fully accessible. That step violates Section 404.2.5. And that's just one issue I noticed." Hargrove's smile tightened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by a college student. "I've been designing buildings longer than you've been alive," he said, his tone patronizing. "We've had experts review this project. It's fully compliant." Sarah's eyes narrowed, but her voice remained steady. "Then your experts missed something," she said. "I've studied the blueprints you published online. The main entrance step is one problem, but the interior has bigger issues. The elevator's too narrow for a standard power wheelchair to maneuver. The restroom grab bars are mounted at 36 inches, not the required 33 to 36 inches. And the tactile paving for visually impaired users stops 10 feet short of the lobby desk, which could disorient someone using a cane." The room went silent. City officials exchanged glances. Reporters scribbled furiously. Hargrove's face reddened, his confidence faltering. "That's quite a list," he said, trying to regain control. "We'll look into it, but I'm sure you're mistaken." "I'm not," Sarah replied. "I can send you the exact ADA sections and measurements. I also noticed the emergency exits. The east exit has a sloped threshold that exceeds the 1:12 ratio, making it unsafe for wheelchair users during an evacuation. That's a violation of both ADA and NFPA 101 Life Safety Code." The audience was riveted. Sarah wasn't guessing. She was citing specific regulations with precision. Hargrove gripped the podium, his knuckles whitening. "This isn't the place for a debate," he said curtly. "We'll address any concerns through proper channels." Mayor Linda Carter, seated on stage, intervened. "Mr. Hargrove, I think we should hear her out," she said, her tone firm. "Ms. Mitchell, please continue." Sarah nodded, unfazed. Thank you, Mayor. The building's design is impressive, but it overlooks basic accessibility needs. For example, the sensory room for autistic users lacks proper soundproofing, which defeats its purpose. The parking lot has 8 accessible spaces, but only 2 have the required 8-foot access aisles. And the digital kiosks in the lobby aren't compatible with screen readers, excluding visually impaired users. She paused, letting her words sink in. I'm not here to criticize for the sake of it. I want this building to work for everyone. But right now, it doesn't. These aren't minor oversights. They're barriers that exclude people with disabilities from a public space meant to serve the whole community. The crowd erupted in applause. Hargrove stood frozen, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by visible discomfort. Mayor Carter thanked Sarah and promised a full review of the issues she'd raised. The event wrapped up quickly after that, with Hargrove avoiding eye contact as he left the stage. By the next morning, Sarah's comments had gone viral. Local news outlets covered the story, with headlines like "Student Exposes Flaws in $40 million Building" and "Architect Schooled by Wheelchair User." Clips of her speaking circulated on social media, amassing thousands of views. Disability advocates praised her for shining a light on accessibility issues, while others criticized Hargrove's condescending response. Sarah hadn't expected the attention. She'd attended the event out of genuine interest in the project, not to make a spectacle. When a reporter from the Raleigh News and Observer called her for an interview, she was hesitant, but agreed. "I just want the building to be fixed," she said. "It's not about me or Mr. Hargrove. It's about making sure everyone can use the space." Behind the scenes, city officials scrambled to address the issues. They hired an independent accessibility consultant to evaluate the community center. The consultant's report, released 2 weeks later, confirmed every point Sarah had made and identified additional violations. The main entrance step was non-compliant, the elevator dimensions were inadequate, and the emergency exit slopes posed safety risks. The report estimated $1.2 million in retrofitting costs to bring the building up to code. Hargrove and Associates issued a public statement, acknowledging the oversights and pledging to cover the retrofit expenses. Daniel Hargrove personally apologized, though his words felt rehearsed to some. "We take full responsibility for the errors," he said. "We're committed to ensuring the community center meets all accessibility standards." Privately, Hargrove was shaken. He'd built his career on precision, yet a 19-year-old had exposed flaws he'd overlooked. Colleagues said he became more reflective, spending hours reviewing ADA guidelines and consulting with disability experts. He reached out to Sarah through a mutual contact, requesting a meeting. She agreed, curious but guarded. The meeting took place at a campus coffee shop. Hargrove was apologetic, admitting he'd been dismissive. "I underestimated you," he said. "That was my mistake. Your knowledge caught me off guard, and I didn't handle it well." Sarah listened, her expression neutral. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you," she said. "But when you laughed, it felt like you were dismissing everyone like me. Accessibility isn't optional, it's a right." Hargrove nodded, taking her words in. "I'm learning that," he said. "I'd like your input on the retrofits, if you're willing. We want to get this right." Sarah considered it. She wasn't obligated to help, but she saw an opportunity to make a difference. "I'll review the plans," she said, "but only if you commit to involving people with disabilities in every step." He agreed, and Sarah became a paid consultant for the project. She worked with the firm to revise the entrance, elevator, restrooms, and other areas, ensuring compliance with ADA and universal design principles. Her involvement didn't erase the initial misstep, but it gave the project a new direction. The community center reopened 3 months later, fully accessible. At the relaunch, Mayor Carter invited Sarah to speak. She kept it brief, thanking the city for listening and urging other municipalities to prioritize inclusion from the start. "Buildings aren't just structures," she said. "They're spaces for people. If anyone's left out, the design has failed." Hargrove attended the relaunch, staying in the background. He didn't speak publicly, but he told colleagues Sarah had changed his approach to architecture. He began incorporating accessibility audits into all future projects, hiring consultants with lived experience of disability. Some saw it as damage control. Others believed he'd genuinely learned. Sarah's story inspired others. NC State's engineering department invited her to guest lecture on inclusive design, and she joined the university's accessibility task force. Classmates who'd barely known her before now sought her advice on projects. She handled the attention with humility, focusing on her studies and advocacy. The viral moment faded, but its impact lingered. Raleigh's community center became a case study in urban planning courses, a reminder of what happens when assumptions go unchecked. For Sarah, it was validation of her expertise and a step toward her goal of designing spaces where everyone belongs. Hargrove never forgot the lesson. He kept Sarah's contact information, occasionally reaching out for feedback on new projects. Their dynamic wasn't warm, but it was respectful, a professional bridge built from a tense encounter. For the Raleigh community, the story was about more than a building. It was about a young woman who spoke truth to power, exposing flaws not just in design, but in attitudes. Sarah's words that day didn't just shock everyone, they reshaped a space and a conversation, proving that expertise can come from anywhere, even a college student in a wheelchair.